to mention, Hawaii Public Radio and stuff like that.
Okay, 2 o'clock rock. Special. Burt Lum. Woo! Burt Lum. Bite marks, HPR. And also the Hawaii Open Data Organization, which is really making tracks all over town. And, getting traction in the process. Welcome to the show, Burt.
Thank you, Jay.
Yeah, you're such a pro about this. Why don't I just turn the show over to you? Do it, yeah.
Okay, well, I just do a solo monologue?
Yeah, go ahead. If Gene Shepard on New York radio can do it, you can do it.
Well, there's a lot going on. When I start to look at when we were covering tech, back in the day when, you were doing Hawaii Public Radio, and then we're going to be coming on like 8 years doing Bite Marks Cafe.
You're getting old already.
Yeah, I was old when it started. But
you've done a great job.
There was,
you really
there were hardly any events going on that we could cover. I mean, we'd find stuff and we'd report on it. Now, there's like every weekend there's 3 or 4 things going on that we could potentially talk about.
It's a metric, isn't it?
Well, it's encouraging, right?
Yeah,
it's encouraging. I mean, it's good that there's a lot more stuff going on. What we want to see is, are there corresponding jobs being created? Are graduates coming back to Hawaii? Is there a tech sector, economy being built here?
So, is there?
There's a lot more that we could do. I mean, we're far from being, I think, sustainable.
Well, here's my sense of it, and see if you agree. Back in the year 2000 or so, all these, there was a word for it. The guys who went to the mainland were going to come back.
Expats?
No, there was a word that just referred to them only, and they're going to come back and they're going to resettle in Hawaii for tech.
Okay.
There was an organization, and Phil Bossett of HTDC organized these beer fests, and they were all going to come and talk to each other and try to knit up into a community of tech guys. Some of the really good ones went into real estate because they couldn't find anything, and other great ideas failed, And in the process, there was the unmentionable 221, which somewhere along the line, thank you to Linda Lingle, got to be radioactive, and it got crushed. I've never seen an initiative get crushed that way. A perfectly good one, by the way.
Yeah.
It was, for all the wrong reasons. And it really did incentivize people. It brought people to our shores to make careers in tech. That was a wonderful thing. And then when it failed, or whether they killed it, like murdering it, these guys left. You remember there were programmers that left?
Yeah.
It was really sad.
Well, a lot of those companies actually, right around that period of time too, 2000, 2001, I mean, there was kind of a bubble burst, right?
Yes.
And then, of course, there was 9/11. And I think a lot of the tech companies that had some pretty good investment into the companies suffered from that bubble bursting. So a lot of them went under. And I think a lot of companies were either exited by that time or went under. And I think that was a big disappointment for the tech economy here in Hawaii.
Yeah. So by the time we got to, I don't know, I'd say the end of the Lingle administration, the whole thing was like, on life support, and it was radioactive as far as tax credits were concerned. And it was a really strange time because people had, the whole thing deflated. Enter Bite Marks. And Bite Marks begins to spot these things, the resurrection, the Phoenix-like, events. And as you said, there were more and more of them. And all of a sudden you get a feeling that there is something being resurrected.
Well, so one of the things that I noticed that was a bit of a shift was, rather than calling it the tech sort of sector or tech industry, they pivoted a little bit. And when I say they, people in government and the people that were coming up with some of these programs, they more broadly referred to it as the sort of entrepreneurial economy.
You remember Linda Lingle on her second term? She ran on a policy, on a platform of, quote, innovation.
Oh, yeah, innovation. But innovation can be a little vague at times, exactly what that is. But if you start to talk about entrepreneurship and getting people to build startups, I think it starts to, a lot of it can be tech companies that are trying to build startups, but it could be more broad than that, right? Much more broad. So it's a little bit more inclusive to talk about sort of entrepreneurship. And I think that's what has has shifted a little bit.
Well, talk about the, all the points of light in the constellation as it has evolved, say, from 2010 till now. In the past 6 years, there has been an evolution. There have been more organizations around town dedicated to incentivizing, building, training, entrepreneurship, innovation. Can you talk about some of them so we can get a handle on, we can try to put them together,
Okay. So, just off the top of my head, one of the efforts that came out of the Hawaii Strategic Development Corporation was I guess, a grant that funded these accelerators. And there was, I think, a request for proposal. People who wanted to start up these accelerators could put in their proposal to HSDC, and they would fund that if you had some matching private sector money. So there was a commitment on, the government as well as private sector. There were several applicants, but the one that has, survived till now, and I'll talk about some of the other ones too, but the one that has survived out of that program was Blue Startups. So Blue Startups was able to have good support from private sector, people like Hank Rogers, and they are.
Well, he's the organizer, isn't he?
Well, Shanoa Farnsworth is actually the manager of Blue Startups, and what they do is they basically.
It's not a coincidence that Blue Planet, Blue Startups, they all use the word blue. Blue Energy now. And they're all around Hank Rogers, right?
Definitely is the
he's
Hank
gotta
Rogers.
Be a certain critical person in all those things.
Yeah. He is the primary influencer in all of that. So, but he has been one that I think has put his money where his mouth is, which is a good thing. And what they have done is, they've brought in startups. They've put out a call for applicants. They are on their 7th cohort. So what they do is they bring them in. I'm not sure exactly, it's like 3 to 4 month intensive mentorship period where they really get put under the sort of the grind of being a startup and get the right mentorship and get the right sort of guidance and direction. And with the hope that with that kind of training, they can go out there and have a higher probability of success. Okay, so that's one.
A lot of those come from the mainland, though. About half of them.
Well,
I think, come from the
what we
that
do.
work?
Okay, so what we know for a fact is that Hawaii is a small market, and if you compare it to other places where we aspire to want to become, it's really small. So once you start to get representation of our local entrepreneurs into the program. Unless there's a lot of new people coming in, you're going to run out of applicants. So what they've done is they've opened it up to mainland as well as Asia. In fact, I think there were a couple of companies that actually came from Asia. I know one from Singapore. So I think they are opening it up, which is good. I mean, I think they look at it from the philosophy that if this company is successful, even if at some point they have to move, they will still benefit Hawaii. And there's been other companies that have gone through the program, started in Hawaii, and actually have moved.
Including Hawaii companies, indigenous Hawaii companies.
Right.
But one thing I've heard about it is, which I think is valuable, is that they're in a group where they are looking across the table and they see these other guys, wherever they may be from, and it stimulates, ideas, discussion, and success. And so if you're in that group, wherever you come from, you benefit, including the local guys who are benefiting by the fellows from offshore.
Well, so they do a program also affiliated, with the other accelerators, which I'll talk a little bit about. But there's an event called East Meets West. It's been done for the last 2 years, and they actually bring in investors from Asia, startups from Asia, and do kind of like a pitch contest. So that's been a good place where people can sort of cross-fertilize ideas. Another accelerator that's been pretty successful is Accelerate UH, which is a similar accelerator type program where they bring in a cohort of companies and they actually do some mentoring and over a period of time where it's an intense mentorship. And they're actually looking for companies, and they're going through the process of selecting their next cohort. And Accelerate UH is part of Sultan Ventures and University of Hawaii.
Oh, it's a partnership between Sultan Ventures
Right,
and UH.
right.
Have they had the same volume of groups?
Well, so
coming through?
with Accelerate UH, what they're encouraging is if you have any tie to the university, you could be a staff person, you could be a professor, you could be an instructor, you could be a student, you could have some IP, you could just, any affiliation, you can apply for being a part of that cohort. And, I think it's a sort of a rich environment to try to tap some of that intellectual property that might be coming out of
Sure.
University of
Well,
Hawaii.
it's a natural. You get all these science organizations in the university, and it reminds me of iLab, lest we forget.
Oh yeah.
iLab. You were there at the outset. You were part of that. I know you covered it pretty well.
Well, so what is also encouraging is that they do have recognition at the university that they have to create these environments for bringing people together and innovating and collaborating. So the iLab, which is Building 37, which is where the ITS group used to reside, where David Lasner's old office used to be.
Did you know before that it was the registration building? For Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. So they basically gutted it, and they created this environment where you have a lot of walls where you can actually do your dry ink on, and video monitors, and even a little mini maker space. And they are encouraging people to do pitches and various kinds of speed networking, in there. I mean, those are some of the events that I've seen.
Yeah, and they have classes on entrepreneurshut. They have classes on finance. I mean, the kinds of things that entrepreneurs really should know about. Very good teachers there.
Yeah.
A guy named Robert Sakata, if you know him.
So Accelerate UH is something I think has gained some traction. Another one that is really successful is the Energy Accelerator. And the Energy Accelerator, they got some federal money to actually invest in companies. So they are looking, I think they follow a similar model of the other accelerators that I just mentioned, but they're focused on the clean energy marketplace.
Yeah, and Hawaiian Electric is a funding source for them. And they also do mix it up with mainland entrepreneurs and local entrepreneurs in order to get that kind of critical mass that you were talking about.
Right. Another one is GVS. GVS is on the Big Island, and they are more focused around the creative media space. So they're looking at something called transmedia, where if you create, in fact, Jay, you ought to be in transmedia. I think you already are. You can do stuff on video, you can do for the internet, you can do stuff for, your smartphone, your iPad, your desktop.
Right.
So that media is leveraged across all those different screens. And they're looking for creative individuals that have content or some product idea, maybe in the form of, let's say a story or application or game that could perhaps be leveraged across all those different platforms. So that's GVS. They're on the Big Island.
And all through the islands too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they in Kona or Hilo?
They're in Kona, and then they also have a building out here by the pier that is also supposed to be their Honolulu presence.
Very recent. This is the last year.
And the other accelerator as well. So I don't know too much about that one. That one's kind of brand new. This guy Colin Kobayashi is starting that up, and I think it's. I'm not sure where the funding is coming from and how it's tied to perhaps HTDC or the government, but I've started to hear some discussions about that.
So what about Hawaii Open Data? How is it doing? It is a point of light in this landscape as well.
Well, we are continuing the good fight to encourage government to make government data more easily accessible.
Yeah.
And when I speak about government data, I'm talking about public data that we've already paid for with our tax dollars that could perhaps enable our community of coders and developers and digital data storytellers to perhaps create some applications, visualization, some analysis, and help sort of bridge this gap between, the government and the community to help understand what's going on. And I think the data will continue to be a foundational tool upon which a lot of cool things can be created.
How successful?
Well, the key thing is trying to get people to understand what's the value of open data. And in fact, I had a discussion this morning with a good buddy of mine, Ian Kitajima. And
Saw him on the street 20 minutes ago.
really, the idea is if data in and of itself can be kind of boring, right? But if there's a story behind the data, that's when it starts to get a little bit interesting. Now, and if the data can, in a story that you can tell because of that data, is able to help you better understand, let's say, a process, help you save some money, perhaps even help you make some money, then there's some value in that data. Now, a simple example would be when we first started to look at open data, and this is back in the early days when 2011, 2012, when Gordo
early days.
was CIO over at the city.
Yeah.
We had a little civic hackathon where we were encouraging the community of developers to look at creating an application. And of course, the problem was there wasn't any data. So the only data set that was pretty reliable was one that was being published by the bus. And so the bus was publishing the location of the bus, the time of arrival. It would calculate how how far away it was in terms of how long you had to wait. It would also tell you where your bus stop was, and that could all be basically created so that you could use an application like a mobile app and find that bus.
I'm getting really curious, and whenever I get really curious, you know what happens?
Gotta go break.
Right.
Hi, I'm Ethan Allen, host of Likeable Science on Think Tech Hawaii. Come join us every Friday at 2 p.m. when I interview interesting scientists about what they do, why they do it, and why we should all care about it. It's a lot of fun to see. And you can learn interesting stuff. You'll hear all kinds of fascinating science, and we know you'll have a great time. Hope to see you then. Bye-bye.
Aloha, I'm Kaui Lucas, host of Hawaii is My Mainland, here on Think Tech Hawaii every Friday at 3 p.m. We address issues of importance for those of us who live here on the most isolated landmass on the planet. Please come join me Fridays at 3 p.m. Mahalo.
Aloha, my name is Richard Emery, and I host Condo Insider. We talk about issues facing the condo association throughout Hawaii and talk about solutions. When you think about it, about 1/3 of our population lives in some form of common interest real estate. We broadcast every Thursday at 3 p.m. Please tune in and thank you. Aloha.
Bingo. Bingo. We're back. 2 o'clock rock with Burt Lum. We're talking about all the points of light, in entrepreneurship and startups around Hawaii. And we're evolving into a discussion here of where it's all going and how it can be further connected. That's the ultimate. But anyway, talking about open data, talking about data on the bus,
Right.
which sounds very useful. And probably my curiosity point is you can make a great app with that.
Well, so what we're trying to do is bring some sense of value to this data. And the data was being published by the bus, but the only way you could really appreciate it is if it was in an app. And if you, and so a couple of apps were created. One is called The Bus and another one called All Bus. And you could use it and find out, like I said, where the bus is, how far away is it, how long is it going to take to get there, where your bus stop is. And when I talk to people about some of the value of open data, and I bring that example up, that is a direct correlation to the value of that data because it saves them time. It makes them, it easier for them to, find the bus stop or find the bus that they're trying to catch. And there's all kinds of other applications out there depending on, whether the data is available And
But let's stop at the bus for a minute, just hold the bus. You know, the bus, the whole thing with the bus is like an intersection of changing times. You know, we live, intersection is an interesting word when you're talking about the bus. We live in a time when the whole thing about transportation is changing. I mean, there's all this, pressure to get off fossil fuel and to use hybrid buses and the intersection of the bus and the rail, this big stuff. And all these people who don't want to drive cars anymore because they're fossil fuel, the whole millennial generation is migrating toward the bus. and we want to accelerate that migration, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And what this kind of app really helps, because it makes it possible to use the bus in a better way, more efficient way, in a fun way. And so all we can do for buses, we should do. This is a wonderful thing to do, and hopefully it will have the desired effect. So we can have more than one app like this too.
sure, so the data is open, and it doesn't limit anybody else from building something that involves transportation. And I think there's going to be more integration of other data sets that could be a more robust application. I mean, look at applications like Waze, where you could, it's like crowdsourcing information about traffic and how long it takes to get from point A to point B. I mean, Google spent a lot of money purchasing these guys, and now a lot of people that I know use this application.
What does it do for you?
Well, it does a multitude of things. I mean, it can give you directions on where to get from point A to point B, but it also can tell you what the traffic, let's say, load is going to that destination.
How does it know?
Because it's actually crowdsourcing information from all the people that are using the app.
So it's reading everybody who uses the app live.
Right.
And then determining how many people are on a given street and making a map of where the traffic is too intense.
Right.
Ooh, that's great. Is that here now, right
Yeah,
now?
yeah. You can get Waze on your smartphone.
Yeah.
So there's stuff like that. There's there's a number of things that you could do with, let's say, if you were able to look at illnesses across the landscape, and people were checking in and saying, oh, I've got a cough, or I've got flu, or I'm not feeling well.
You got to affirmatively do that, though.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a voluntary thing.
It's a voluntary thing, but then you can get a sense of what is happening in this community.
Sure, if you want to know if there's a bad flu going around, you could know.
Right,
a bad
right,
cold, how it evolves in an individual, then you can predict for your own self, or take, fewer risks about that.
Right. So there's just a multitude of applications that could result if the data is available. So what we're trying to do, so the finesse is, it's not just about the data. If the data is there, then community can come in and start to develop stuff. And if the community comes in, and if you have willing partners like the government, then you can create these environments for collaboration. And that's kind of what the Unconferenz was all about. It was really trying to bring people together that had some common interests. It was a forum for discussion and brainstorming and ideas, and get them to look at, are there ways that we could perhaps do something together and take this to another level?
Yeah, let's talk about Unconferenz. We need to, in fact, we made a movie of Unconferenz for OC16, for our Think Tech on OC16
Oh, wow.
show. Yeah.
Great.
You're in it.
Yeah. How long of a movie is
It's
it?
28 minutes and 30 seconds.
Oh, wow.
This is Think Tech on OC16. It'll premiere this Sunday. What's this Sunday? April 3rd. Okay, at 10:30 p.m.
Oh,
which
good.
is
Well, you heard it
a
here
good time,
first.
Yeah, so check it out. You'll see Burt. You'll see him at his best, because he was waxing eloquent about how the 2016 Unconferenz relates to the 2017 Unconferenz, and what he expects people to do in the interim to move toward 2017.
Right.
So anyway, I mean, just a summary of it is that you go there and you get involved in these breakout sessions, but these breakout sessions are determined by the group itself. And so the list of breakout sessions is very interesting, because it's all sort of comes up from, it's a popular list. It's created right there on the site. And then there were 8 or 10 Ignite speakers in the afternoon. That was really interesting.
Well, we've done the Unconferenz 9 times already, so it's been going on for 9 years.
Yeah.
And we have come up with a way that helps to put some organization around what might look kind of chaotic. So the Unconference, from a format standpoint, is really participant driven, right? So you want to encourage the people that participate to be a full participant, not thinking that they're just going to sit and listen to somebody talk. They can be a part of the round table and be a part of, coming up with some ideas and brainstorming and sharing some thoughts. But in order to do that, there is a lot of sort of the preliminary work that goes into developing what happens at the Unconference before the Unconference starts. So as much as it looks like, we selected all the topics and everything was done at the Unconference, a lot of preliminary work was done ahead of time. One of the things that we try to do is we try to have the community select topics beforehand, and we have it all listed on there's a site for ideas where you can suggest a topic and vote those topics. And then we also try to look at what topics are being suggested and try to find some subject matter experts that could participate.
Yeah, and then you have these stickers. This is an example of the good use of stickers, blue stickers.
Well, so people can go and vote. Now, in the case where you have more ideas than you have session, let's say, time slots and rooms, and typically we would have either 15 or 20. So if you have more than that, you have to kind of vote and see which ones get selected and which ones don't. But what we try to do is we try to encourage, all of the topics to be discussed, even if it's a small group of 2 or 3 or 4 people. You can also find a corner and and have a conversation.
Well, you created an environment where they're likely to discuss. I mean, really come out on things, talk about their thoughts, have creative, collective ideas. And part of it is, no matter what the topic is, it's the idea that you're free to say what's on your mind.
Well, so a couple things that came out of previous Unconferences, which I think were very encouraging. One was the whole idea of co-working spaces. So at the time, there was a lot of individuals thinking about trying to set up a co-working space. And when the Unconference came around, we said, hey, why don't we all get together? Let's talk co-working. Could be from Maui, could be from Big Island, Oahu. Let's figure out what would it take to make that work. There was a session on co-working, and what resulted from that were 3 or 4 co-working spaces
Which
that
exist today.
Yeah. Well, they've gone through their sort of natural evolution.
Yeah.
But co-working is a thing that is now a regular part of our community.
Yeah.
So now there's places like Box Jelly. There's one downtown called Rock. There's places like even the iLab that we just talked about is kind of
Really
like a co-working.
yes, I agree.
Yeah. So
It's the same idea.
Right. So there's these environments where people can come and just kind of do some work and be able to interact with other people in that space. So that came out of an Unconference. Another thing that came out of Unconference was the idea of maker fairs. So there's this thing
I
called.
was going to ask you that very question. And in fact, what I was going to say was, Burt, right after this break, let's talk about the connection between Unconference and the Makers Fairs.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a reasonable statement. I'm making it again now. Right after this break, we're going to talk about Makers Fairs.
Aloha, my name is Jeff James, and I'd like to invite you to watch my show, The Military in Hawaii. It'll be shown every Friday at 11 a.m. here on thinktech.com. Aloha.
Aloha, how you doing? I'm Gordo the Tech Czar, here on Think Tech Hawaii, where we co-host Hibachi Talk, where we talk about technology and bring in all kinds of cool guests. Also, my co-host with me today is
Andrew the security guy. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching Think Tech Hawaii, and thanks for watching Hibachi Talk. We also have Angus.
And you there, lad? It's Angus. I bring in all kinds of wee things. Oh, look, you see my lips moving.
Bingo! We're back. By the way, Burt is a director of thinktechhawaii.com.
On the board.
Hawaii, Inc. On the board.
Yeah.
A director on the
Yeah,
board.
yeah,
And we love that.
Wow.
We are so happy to have
Thanks for
you.
inviting me to be on the board.
Thanks for being on the board and spending time with us and supporting us. We appreciate that.
So
So
maker
anyway,
spaces,
maker
maker
spaces,
fairs,
yeah.
maker fairs. So the movement across the country has been around getting hands-on with stuff. And it could be anything from, like Raspberry Pi or Arduino, or just doing knitting and doing woodwork. Those are all, in fact, the last maker fair, I think there were bakers. I mean, if you bake, you're a maker. You're making food. But the idea, the concept is taking a kind of a new attitude toward getting people to start making stuff again. I think a lot of, there's these swings, this pendulum swinging where making stuff, even manufacturing was outsourced, to Asia, right?
Sure.
So a lot of people were discouraged about inventing things and making
They lost their
things.
confidence in it.
Right. And what this maker movement has really helped to try to do is get people back to making things. And there were a lot of people in the community that were interested in doing something called a maker fair. So one of the Unconference topics 3 years ago was, why don't we get you guys together? Let's talk about doing a maker fair. Let's see what it takes to actually register the name and connect with the parent organization and get some people who will commit to organizing the maker fair. So the maker fair has been going on for, this will be the third year. It'll be in June this year.
Where?
It'll be at Ilani, the Sullivan Center.
That's where it was the last time I saw one.
I don't recall the exact date, but
Yeah.
it'll be, I think, mid-June. And, it's been only growing since the first one. So that's a fun thing. Another thing that kind of came out of Unconference was the idea of drones. Right, we were following the whole drone activity, and we convened a session on drones. People brought their
I
drones.
remember Ted Ralston gave a talk there.
Yeah. We did it over at Windward Community College. We
I
flew a
was
bunch
there.
of drones.
You had
in
a
the-
drone up in the sky, I saw.
And drones is a big topic of conversation.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be.
somewhere,
It's an important piece of technology that I think isn't going
Change
to
our
go away.
lives.
Isn't going to go away.
No,
Yeah.
no, not at all.
So and this Unconference took a flavor of open data as well, because we had partnered up with Code for Hawaii, and we were doing it in conjunction with something called Code Across, which is an event that happens across the country, and it was being managed by Code for America. So we took the theme was around open data. And so we were looking at various sectors and how open data was important in those sectors, and then try to bring people together to see how we might collaborate and build some things. And I thought it was some great discussion.
Let's talk about coding for a minute, a little digression about
Sure,
coding.
yeah.
Back when, in the days that we were talking about before, in the early 2000s, that was tech, code. This is before apps, Actually, when you think about it, apps didn't exist until Apple rolled out the iPhone. There was no such thing. And the iPhone is what? The iPhone is not that old. It's 6-7 years like that. Something like that. It's amazing how recent and how it's changed the world, and how many millions of apps there are out there now. How many people support themselves making apps and all. And some got rich, not a lot, but some got rich. But in the early days, it was coding at an enterprise level. It was coding, for huge projects and all that.
Right.
And there were programmers out here. The languages have changed. The coders have changed. Some of them have come and gone. But right now, you have Code for America, Code Across. You have Code for Hawaii, right? McKay Davis,
Right,
who I
right.
saw on the street 20 minutes ago. also.
Along with Ian.
It was an active street here on 4th Street Mall. Come to 4th Street Mall, everybody.
Yeah,
does, Everybody will be there at one time soon. So, it seems to me, Burt, that through the Unconference and through the kind of the foment that we've seen over the past 5-6 years, there are people actively coding. A lot of them in apps, but some of them beyond apps too. Comment?
Well, so you bring up an interesting thing, which gives us an opportunity to talk about DevLeague. So
Yes, thank you.
DevLeague. So when we look at we're talking about accelerators, and we're talking about startups, and we're also talking about, how do we get companies in Hawaii to start hiring people that have this expertise? Well, some of the employers say, well, I can't find the people with this kind of coding expertise. And then, you know, there's the sort of like, what are the kids coming out of the university or colleges equipped to do? And there may not be that match, right? So what this company has done called DevLeague is, again, it's like an accelerator, but they accelerate you through this coding boot camp. And over a period of, again, you know, 3 to 4 months.
Or less.
Yeah,
It's
or
an
maybe
immersion
12, you know, I
experience.
think it's like 12 weeks or something. Yeah, they immerse you in a coding environment that gets you pretty much prepped for jobs. In fact, what they try to do is they try to look for placement of jobs for you once you get out. And DevLeague is another, I think, important piece of this sort of evolving ecosystem of ours that creates the right kind of expertise that satisfies some of the job opportunities that are out there. So there's more of that. And so I'm hearing about them quite a bit. I mean, you
So am
know,
I.
there's hackathons that are coming up, and you know, like I said, there weren't hackathons when we started, but there's, you know, like one every month nowadays. DevLeague is in the middle of that. When we talk about workforce development, like the state government is looking at bringing in more of these IT folks, they're looking to DevLeague to attract the younger folks that might want to come into government and work in the you know, government environment, and perhaps change the culture inside government. Because like you had mentioned, right, prior to this, a lot of the coders were developing applications for the mainframe, programming in COBOL, and pretty much keeping those legacy systems up and running. But a lot has changed.
Languages have changed. and
Language have
platforms
changed, platforms have changed, open source, you know, having people collaborate on a software application.
I think DevLeague is great. DevLeague visibly raises all boats. You know, and so it makes it possible if you're a businessman or woman, and if you want to get, you know, some good coding done for your company, you know where to go. There are people actually out there who trained by DevLeague. And I have talked to and interviewed some of the graduates of DevLeague, and they are really excited.
Yeah.
They you know, some of them have been to other coding schools, I won't say where before, and they, you know, they say, well, that was nothing compared to DevLeague. DevLeague got me all wired up, now I'm ready. So it's a stimulation at the least. But here, in the last few minutes of our discussion,
Sure.
where does it go? I mean, it's a spiral, right? DevLeague and jobs, and DevLeague and more jobs and all that. This is hard to manage. I mean, it took San Diego, you know, 20, 30 years to create a tech industry in biotech, and it didn't happen by accident. There were government incentives. There was abiding and continuing government interest. Where do we have that? Do we have this coming together so it is, may I use the word, I hate to use this word, sustainable, so that it keeps on going, so that the companies need the tech support, and the tech support is there, ready to serve the companies?
So what happened, you know, back in the day when we were trying to promote the tech industry and Act 221, it sort of created this a bit of divisiveness between what was perceived to be the tech people and then all the other industries that were already in Hawaii. And whether it was looking for credits or incentives, it's like, well, why them and not us, right? So there was this kind of adversarial environment.
Indeed.
Now, what was good about the pivot to entrepreneurship was that it covers a whole swath of industries. And what we're trying to do now, and when I say we, it's a collective we, all of us, right? We're trying to look at getting our traditional industries, whether it be tech, whether it be tourism or agriculture or transportation or energy, to look at ways that they could partner up with some of the entrepreneurial brain trusts that's coming up from the startup community, and look at ways that from the traditional business, can they participate in bringing innovation into those sort of traditional business
Coding
environments.
for agriculture,
Exactly,
coding for
right.
farms.
Right. So, I mean, there could be an ag hackathon, or like Energy Accelerator has already done. They're looking at creating startups in the energy arena. We should be looking at doing that in the tourism industry. There was an event on Maui called Wedding Tech. And
I
that's
have not heard of this.
no, and then they're gonna do one on Oahu. So Wedding Tech was an effort to bring together the sort of like the destination industry around getting married in Hawaii and technology and companies that would perhaps provide
Video, I'm
services.
sure videos involved.
Video, yeah, probably a whole bunch of content creation. But you know, you're at least seeing some effort to bring what was seemingly two different industries together. So it could be tourism, tourist tech, ag tech, energy tech. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen. And I think what we're trying to see is what makes sense, what sticks to the wall, and what has some sustainability. It really helps if the traditional businesses can support the startup ecosystem, because that's the only way it's gonna work.
That's really important, and that's a fitting inquiry for the rest of our show. A couple of minutes. How do we get? I agree with you totally. The public has to be behind this, otherwise it won't be sustainable. And kids have to be behind it. We have to reach every element, every corner of the public. How do we do that?
Well, I think kids are already getting exposed in schools through extracurricular activity in STEM activities like robotics, getting involved with Science Olympiad. They just had the Hawaii
Science fair just this week.
Science fair was just this past.
Huge, yeah.
Yeah. So kids are already getting involved with, getting exposure to what science and technology can do, and getting a taste that just whets their appetite so that they potentially pursue careers in that. And I think there's a growing acceptance of science and tech being cool in school.
But here's what troubles me. I mean, it's a recurrent thought I have, and I see these points of light in the landscape, and I hear the stuff you have on bite marks on Wednesday afternoons on HPR. I think, gee, we seem to be making progress. We seem to actually be moving ahead, and it seems to be connecting up. But remember, this is the 21st century. This is a century of tech. All over the world, people are studying tech and entrepreneurship. We're not alone. It's not like, you can say that Hawaii is moving faster than other places. And I have this recurrent thought, Burt, that actually, in a relative sense, other places are moving faster than us.
Oh, yeah.
Comment?
I think you're absolutely right. And what will happen is that if we move at the pace that we are moving, we have to accelerate faster than that, because there are other places that are accelerating faster. And those innovations, those disruptions are going to come here and disrupt us before we even know that
Right.
it's coming here.
We'll be consumers yet again.
Yes, and to continue our economy based on consumerism is just going to leave us pretty much without a whole lot of choices. So we have to recognize that in order for us to keep up, we have to be able to disrupt our own environment to be successful.
Yes. We have to think disruptively,
Yeah.
and we have to think with lots of confidence, and we have to make all speed, all alacrity in this matter. Everybody together now.
Yep.
Okay, what do you want to talk about today?
I don't know, whatever you want to talk about, Jay.
Thanks for coming.
Oh,
down.
well, we tackled the solution, so,
We got more to discuss, so we have to do this on a recurrent basis.
Sure. I would love
Thank
to.
you, Burt Lum.
Thank
Bite
you.
marks.
Thank you.
Hawaii Open Data.